Welcome to the show. We've got a very interesting episode here in PR and marketing. We always look at great companies that failed or technologies that we were all hooked on that don't exist anymore, and why. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Please give our videos a like and hit the bell so that you'll be first to know whenever we drop a new episode. So let's dive right in. When the world connected on Skype. I'm sure you all remember Skype. Skype, the online video calling service, is shutting down in May this month after more than 2 decades of service. For those of a certain generation, Skype changed everything. I know it did for me. I always used it. Before it launched in 2003, making international calls was prohibitively expensive and few viable digital alternatives existed. This is a time where you're either going out to buy a phone card and scratching off the back and making an international call based on how much money you've spent on the phone card and its rates, or the more expensive way to call directly phone to phone and trying to stomach the international rates that you would pay, depending on what country you were calling from and where the person you were calling is. So Skype offered users a cheap and easy way to call anyone in the world, skirting the draconian landline industry. When Skype added video calls a few years later, it felt as if the future had arrived. I remember it very vividly. Students used Skype to stay connected to families back home. International friendships were born, and a generation of cross-border relationships began, or ended, over the service. By the late 2000s, Skype was so ubiquitous that its name became a verb, much like Xerox and Google. Right, people used to say, I'm going to Xerox you this, which meant to take a scan of something. Or I'm going to Google it, which meant to do an online search. Its bounty ringtones and audio notifications were iconic. Everybody knew it. At its peak, Skype had about 300 million users around the world. But it was a product of the desktop era. And as users went mobile, thank you, Steve Jobs, Skype lost its edge to upstarts like WhatsApp and FaceTime. Today, the app is forgotten on most phones and computers, particularly in the West. The platform still has dedicated pockets of users in countries like Turkey, Russia, India, and the Philippines, according to market intelligence from Sensor Tower. And he said, Skype has been an integral part of shaping modern communications and supporting countless meaningful moments. Microsoft said in a blog post announcing its imminent shutdown. Oh no. Before Skype goes the way of other early internet icons like AOL Instant Messenger and Friendster, rest of world readers share their favorite memories of the service. Here are their stories. I remember being a heavy user of AOL Instant Messenger in college, and Friendster as well. It was the way we kept in touch. It was the way we chatted from desktop to desktop. Gloria Bettoni, she's 40, from Italy. She says, I will always remember Skype because when my now ex-boyfriend was living in Latin America and working there, we would use Skype sometimes to talk to each other. Then he came back home to Italy and he was using my computer and he was Skyping that night with a girl he hooked up with for the past few weeks when he was in Latin America. He forgot to log out. I found the conversation open on my laptop, and that was the end of the story and the relationship. Ouch. Kazi Protoy Ahmed, 31, from Bangladesh, says, I was in my second year at the university. I was chatting with her on Skype, but mostly on chat, not video call or something like that. One time I requested her to basically keep her Skype on because they have this feature, that green dot, that stays on if you're online. So she put her machine on sleep, and that night was amazing because I didn't really feel like I'm alone. That really meant a lot to me, and that really meant a lot for her as well. She's basically the champion of the story, he said. Fascinating. Zaki Wamia Anushua, 30, from Bangladesh, says, we did not go to the same university or to the same school, not even the same subject. So it's not like we were connected. At that time, we were hardly dating. So when he mentioned that he would like me to stay up with him and accompany him for his studies, and that he was feeling very lonely, that was like the best moment ever because I was secretly crushing on him. It was a wonderful feeling. And seeing that green dot also made me feel very special. It made him feel not so alone, and it made me feel like the most special person in the world. Fantastic. Arifa Ghani, 38, from India, said, I used Skype every day to call my parents when I was pursuing my master's in Birmingham, UK. It was my world those days. It kept me connected with my family. I never felt away from them, only because of Skype. It just filled the gap of being away from friends and family. I couldn't feel the time difference between London and Kashmir, or spending my first Eid away from home. Very touching. So Skype was originally called Skyper, but the R was dropped when the domain was taken. Very interesting. Nicole, 26, from Singapore, said, 3 months after meeting my now fiancé, COVID forced us apart. We were from different countries, and without Skype, staying connected the way we did would have been impossible. Sometimes we'd leave Skype on all day and night, not always speaking, just being part of each other's routines. It became a quiet but constant presence in our relationship. Today, we're buying a home together. So, you tell me, did Skype matter? Really cool stuff. That's a great story. Zoe Maui, 33-year-old from Hong Kong, says, I was 17 when I left home for the first time. My parents were worried. I was all alone in a small town in Italy. We talked on Skype, where I have cried many, many times, and usually got even more homesick afterwards. In university, Skype remained as the means of communication even though we were on WhatsApp already. Adding someone on Skype is not like adding a new contact on your phone. It does feel like when you add that person, you will actually talk to them. We also often use Skype on the first day of the Chinese New Year to talk to relatives in the US and Australia. It was one of the most joyous things for my late grandma. Wow, that's very touching. Jorge, 39 years old, from Argentina, said, when I was 23, I met and started dating a girl from Russia. After visiting each other's country, we maintained our relationship via Skype. When she moved in with me in Buenos Aires, she would call her parents via Skype and speak for long hours in Russian. To me, Skype meant a window to the world and a milestone in my adulthood when I started making deep connections with others. Interesting. Annalisa Morelli, 42, USA/Italy, says, I've had Skype forever, and I always use it a lot. Before WhatsApp, it really was the only way to call home, or like to call phones for not too much money. I still have it on my phone to call my grandma's landline because it's much cheaper. When they announced they were closing it, I was like, I don't know what service I should use now to call my grandma. And then I looked at my call history. Literally all you see is like this history of just me calling my grandma's landline forever. Like I haven't used it for anything else in years, literally years. I'm actually sad it's closing because of that, because I'll have to figure out another way to call my grandma. I can't think of anyone else I know who doesn't have a cell phone. But yeah, she's not getting one, and she's not even mentioned it. She's 94. Interesting fact. The verb Skype was added to the Oxford English Dictionary on June 15, 2006. Very cool stuff. Joel Burke, 32, USA, says, while I was a long-time Skype user, I think the biggest impact of Skype was what it did for Estonia. I went to Tallinn in 2018 for work. During my time there, it was apparent that Skype was the foundation of much of modern Estonia. Most of the angels and VCs made their money from Skype. I think he's referring to angel investors, which they pumped back into the tech ecosystem. Many of the next generation of entrepreneurs in the country cut their teeth at Skype and learned how to scale a company. Plus, Skype helped put Estonia on the map for many in Silicon Valley and gave the country a positive reputation that made it easier for future entrepreneurs to raise funding. Truly, the effort of Skype has been profound on Estonia. Wow. Next, Marta Angelilis, 34 from Switzerland. Here's what she said. She said, Skype reminds me of one of my first trips to Japan in 2006 and 2007. I was almost 16 and very far from home for the first time. Skype meant being able to talk with those at home. Later on, when similar services became more common, I still use Skype to call friends and family who only use landline phones. My husband's grandmother and a priest friend in a secluded monastery. Wow. That's a different angle for the use of Skype. Next up, Abba Ahad, 24 in Indiana, said, I used to be so creative in the Skype fan communities. There was a Bollywood fan community, a Shah Rukh Khan fan community, a One Direction fan community. I was not a very popular teenager, so I did not have many friends in school. But then I found a lot of like-minded people on these communities, and they were from around the world. I remember there was a Zoya Khan somewhere in the Middle East, and there was somebody from Kazakhstan. And that is how I learned geography, because all my friends were all over the world. Skype was how we used to connect. Skype was our go-to platform. You're like, hey, whoever's online, join. It was amazing. So an interesting fact here, again, just to break this up. The Skype sound design was created using a blend of natural sounds like wind, water, and even a human breath to make it feel both familiar and abstract. Leave a comment if you remember this signature Skype sound. It'll be interesting to see who's out there who's nostalgic about it as I am. Next up, Camille Bromley, 39, USA. She said, I lived abroad after college from 2007 to 2011, and Skype was indispensable. Its jaunty ringtone is forever stuck in my mind when I think of certain friends I called often during that time. Next up, a 35-year-old from Vietnam, Nguyen Tuan An. It's interesting, Nguyen is a very common name in Vietnam. Everybody thinks it's pronounced Nguyen, but it's actually pronounced Nguyen. I know that from having a former Vietnamese colleague who put me onto that tip. The person said, I use Skype for business. I have Philippine teachers who teach English one-on-one to Vietnamese students and students from other countries like Thailand and Korea. They use Skype to teach students. I have over 100 teachers and about 2,000 students, so Skype is quite important to my business. I think it's very helpful for the students, for my staff, and for my business. Let's look at another one. Amrutha Rao, 34, from Indiana, said, when I was moving to Mumbai for my master's in 2011, my mother and I were worried. How would we see each other? That was the main concern. So seeing the loved one every day, isn't that the greatest gift? Great question. I agree. I told her about Skype. I helped her install it on her old computer a day before I left. And the next day, we had our first ever online meeting. Fantastic. We saw each other, even though we were miles apart, and we returned to our daily routine. It gave us a sense of control at a point of time when my life and her life were changing and evolving. As I cherish that really and hold it close to my heart. William Rubin, 39, from the UK, Great Britain, says, for a long time, it was really the only practical way that my wife and I could speak with one another. She was based in mainland China, and I was based in the UK over COVID. Pretty much every night and every morning when I woke up, we would call each other over Skype and just lie in bed with, the phone on or next to our pillow as we fell asleep and woke up. Guys, you have to keep in mind, you couldn't really do that before. Call somebody and just stay on the phone all night, it would be so expensive. If Skype wasn't there, it would have been basically impossible for us to maintain our relationship. I agree. Doing long distance over COVID was extremely difficult in the first place, but without actually being able to see each other and speak with each other reliably, Skype was the most reliable of the options at the time. Long-distance relationships are much less likely to survive if it's just emails and instant messages. It was really important to actually be able to see each other. I concur. Della, 28 from the UK, says, Skype was a well-known platform to a lot of Iranians living outside of Iran. Or Iran, as Americans mispronounce it. It was probably the most popular way of connecting with families back home. So around 2019, when we had that week-long sort of internet shutdown, people were really worried about all their families, and they were trying to do everything just to make sure they're okay. People noticed that they could phone home through Skype. When you would call them through Skype, it would display a random number, so it wouldn't be a recognized number, and it felt like a safe way of connecting with your family when the internet was shut down. That's fascinating. And I remember our friend was the first one to. Then it had a ripple effect where everybody started saying, okay, let's use Skype. We've been using Skype for years, and it's great that we can use it this way. It was one of those moments where Skype came through and really, really helped the community. Who's next? We've got Sharan Bishwakarma, 35, from Nepal. In 2010, when I moved to Qatar, I used to call my family in Pokhara in Nepal from a telephone booth. Pay 1 rial for every 3 minutes. Then I found Skype and could video call my family for free. I also attended many job interviews via Skype in the UAE. I appreciate how Skype made my overseas stay easy. Cool fact, to break this up. When Microsoft bought Skype in 2011, it had 150 million monthly active users. But by 2020, only 23 million was still Skyping. Basically, this happens all the time. A giant company sees a startup that's excelling and can't create their own. And instead of trying to compete, they buy it and ruin the company. It's happened many times. You see Amazon buying companies, you see Microsoft buying companies, WPP buying companies. We see these huge conglomerates buying these companies. But then it starts to lose its authenticity with its original users as they try to mold it into their own bigger brand. Next up, Lucia Tejo Arribas, 35, from Spain. The first time I used Skype, it was in 2010. I had just started my Erasmus year back then. I'm not sure what an Erasmus year is. If you do know or you're from Spain, please leave a comment. I'd like to know what that is. And it was something very new for us. I used it to speak to my then boyfriend, now husband, and also with my family. I remember that the first time I called my grandfather, he was like, I can't believe it. I mean, how is this possible? Like, you were thousands of kilometers away in another country and we can talk like you were here. That was what was fascinating about that Skype thing. I was 22 years old, and I remember that my boyfriend and I talked every day thanks to Skype. We used to watch movies together and also have an anniversary dinner. It was very important for us and for our relationship. It was basically the only way that we could be in contact and for free. I don't know what we would have done without Skype. Next up, this is a tough one. Sunaina Roy, 42, from Indiana, says, we used Skype in 2005 for an intercontinental play called Call Kota in a Box, directed by Rimini Protocol, and performed over Skype in Calcutta and Berlin. It was about call centers, the first form of Calcutta. All of us were taken to a call center and we would perform over the phone. Really cool. Skype was brand new and it was very exciting technology. I remember those days. Though I had access to the internet, I couldn't really call up my friends because maybe they didn't have access to the internet. I remember when I was first introduced to Skype, my older brother told me about Skype. He's very into very technologically advanced things as an engineer. Knows a lot about technology, knows a lot about breaking technologies. And he told me about Skype, and I couldn't believe it when he first showed it to me. So the person continued to say, your access to the internet would be limited to when you were home. So even though Skype connected you, there were a lot of barriers to that connection. In version 2 of Calcutta in 2008, we used Skype to, greater impact and performed much more widely across the globe. Skype made all of that happen. That person is probably referring to the dial-up days, when high-speed internet and Wi-Fi wasn't widely available. Matt Chiavenza, 44, from USA says, I lived in China from 2004 to 2010. Must have been a cool experience. I used Skype constantly to keep in touch with my family and friends in the US and elsewhere. There was just something extra special about seeing their faces. I doubt I'll ever have any warm nostalgia about Zoom. Well said. I couldn't agree myself. Now we have Google Meet, we've got Zoom, we've got other options. But they don't have the same feeling as when we used Skype. So, Skype is available, or was available until the 5th of May. So Skype your grandma, your dad, or your long lost ones one more time. But I'm sorry to say, it's too late. Skype has been shut down. That brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed our walk through this nostalgia. Leave a comment if you ever use Skype. Tell us how you miss it, or what did you use it for? What did it do for you? It was a great revolutionary technology in the world of sort of telephony, messaging, keeping in touch across borders in a very cost-efficient way. I miss it too. Rest in peace, Skype. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Like the video, helps us know what kind of content we should bring you. As always, head over to buymeacoffee.com/Samson King and support the channel. Helps a lot for us to bring you more content. And as always, we want to say thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.